You are being programmed.
Put your feet up, pour yourself a drink. It's time!
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, What the Flock TV, joined by my co-host, Raised by Giants Ryder and Deep in Calculations, J Sol. Together, this is the Flockage Hour. So, welcome everybody. This is the new podcast style show that me, Ryder and J Sol came up with. Well, it was me, then Ryder and then J Sol. These two guys I respect so much, and that's why I had it in my mind to create this show a while ago, and it just became something. So I want to let these guys introduce themselves, and then in the description will be the links to their channels, etc. And basically it's just going to be a podcast style show. We'll talk about a different topic every week or whatever we want to talk about. And the topic this week is going to be cryptozoology or beastry or bestry, whatever way you're going to look at it. So we'll start with Ryder first. Introduce yourself, and then we'll go on to JSOL, and then we'll dive into it.
Hello, Paul. Hello, Jay. Thanks so much for inviting me and putting this whole thing together. I really appreciate it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to discuss all kinds of great topics and get into a really deep conversation and hopefully have a lot of fun too and have some laughs in there as well. But I host a podcast / YouTube channel called Raised by Giants that Paul has been on several times here recently, and I also have a Rockfin channel, and you can check out the show on any of the podcast platforms. I interview people such as yourself and others that I think that have something really important to say. So thank you so much. I appreciate you for inviting me, and let's jump into it.
Right, go on, Jay. Jay Sol, Deep in Calculations.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on, Ryder. Paul, awesome to be here with you guys. So I'm just a researcher. I've been researching the occult, the conspiracies, esoteric knowledge for about 15 years or so. Lately, I've been doing more boots on the ground, so I'm kind of starting a YouTube channel doing that, where I'm going to be going to a lot of these old world sites, doing a lot of basically boots on the ground exploration of different trailheads in Canada that are kind of unknown, hidden in weird places, just really epic footage that I've been getting lately. So I've been kind of doing that. I've been talking with Paul a lot online about, different topics. We kind of go back and forth about it. So he kind of was telling me to kind of get a YouTube channel going. So I started to, dig deeper into that. And now I'm kind of meeting a whole bunch of other people. Super excited to be chatting with Ryder today. And I'm just kind of all over the place with my knowledge. I'm really into gematria, kind of doing decodes and whatnot. So cryptozoology is a pretty interesting topic to me. I think we have some pretty interesting stuff in regards to, 11, the realm of 11. So I think we'll get into it maybe. That's pretty much all I have to say. I'm just a researcher and just looking to expand my mind and enjoy time with friends, right?
Definitely. And I mean, I've saw some of your footage that you've taken, and we might even talk about that in future episodes because it's so intriguing. This is one of the reasons why I thought about doing cryptozoology, because when you're in the middle of nowhere and you look at these ancient sites, you always get to talk about Bigfoot. Some people will dismiss that straight away. I don't know why, because we're in a realm where there's just so much is up for grabs, so much is weird, so much is unknown. It is a crazy world out there, and these guys that have joined me today I respect highly. Do you know what I mean? We don't always agree on things. We don't, it's not an echo chamber, but we do understand. We take our, we research our topics, and we're all about opinions. And in the end of the day, we all want to give an opinion, but it's how you give that opinion to someone else. That's the key. And a lot of people don't know how to give that opinion without sounding like an ass. You know what I mean? So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to talk about, cryptozoology, or you could even say, like I was talking about before, bestiary. I mean, a lot of people are into Tartaria these days and medieval monsters. I've done a video on it. Now, it seems funny that these ancient buildings can be built by, antiquity giants and so on. People believe in demons, angels. And when we talk about these animals, it's like, no, they don't exist. And, I just wanted a good open discussion with two people and see where we go with it. So we'll let Jay Stoll go first, and we'll just go backward and forwards. And Ryder, just jump in whenever whenever you want. And we're just going to talk about this topic. So what's your initial thoughts on cryptozoology or bestiary or whatever, how you pronounce it?
So, I guess we'll talk about cryptozoology. The study of hidden animals. So it's kind of funny. I went to the CNE the other day, and that's like a World Fair site in Ontario, in Canada, Toronto. You can find it online, lots of pictures about it, CNE exhibition place. And they have tokens for craft beer and craft wine and whatnot. So I grabbed some tokens, and on the token, you can clearly see a red griffin. And it's like there's griffins everywhere on the architecture. There's beautiful arches, massive, cathedral style buildings and big domed buildings. But they say that, it's cryptozoology, it's hidden, and, we don't really study this, but they give people, I don't know how many people looked at these tokens to use it to buy beer and alcohol, you know what I mean? They probably didn't even think anything of it, just give me my booze and whatnot, but subconsciously, especially because the color red is like the most triggering color, right, for the human mind. We could probably go into that a lot deeper, obviously. But it was just interesting that, I'm sitting there, and I went a couple of weeks before on my bike, just riding through there, taking lots of videos and pictures of a lot of the old architecture and doing a little bit of decoding on the numbers around and whatnot. So I just found that kind of interesting that it's so blatant and out there, but it's hidden, right? Crypto, like occult, and it's weird because that's kind of how the occult works. It's hidden but out there, so it makes it more powerful, I guess, right? What's your idea on that, Ryder?
Yeah, I was kind of brought up in the cryptozoology because I'm from Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where the first sighting of the Mothman ever took place. And the Mothman's actually the most documented creature case of all time in one specific area. There's more than 30 police reports filled out on sightings of the Mothman from Point Pleasant. So I grew up in that area, and the legend and everyone kind of talking about it. And my third cousin was one of the first people to see the Mothman. Her name was Marcella Bennett. And it's really strange kind of scenario, because I think there was a lot going on during that time in the 60s whenever the Mothman was being sighted, because it was in the TNT area. The TNT area used to be an old Air Force base. There's a bunch of bunkers. There's a bunch of things going on out there. And we know how these creatures and, UFOs and stuff are always kind of spotted around military bases. And the thing about it is it wasn't called the Mothman. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Mothman or seen the Mothman Prophecies movie back in the early 2000s with Richard Gere, which wasn't anything like what actually happened. But back in the 60s, it wasn't called the Mothman. It was called the Birdman. And it never had red eyes. And every time that I would see Marcella growing up, she would, always be around my grandma's house and stuff. And I would always ask her to tell me the story of what she experienced whenever she came in encounter with the Mothman. And she said that it was like 10 foot tall, basically. It had a huge wingspan. She was out in the TNT area visiting her mom. She went to leave. It was really late at night. She went to open up her car door. She had her newborn baby girl in her hands, like in her arms. And she saw this entity standing almost right beside of her. And it basically paralyzed her. And when it paralyzed her, she fell to the ground on top of her newborn baby, and she thought that she was suffocating and killing her baby, but she couldn't move. And I would always ask, like, oh, what, did it have red eyes? And she was like, no, I didn't have red eyes. It just like looked like an owl, like a very tall owl, like how an owl like sticks its head down into its neck. And she said all she really seen was a silhouette, and then she like heard it like fly away, like its wings, and it was like really, really loud the way that it flew away. So that always intrigued me from being a really, really young kid and growing up in that city where one of the most documented cryptozoology creatures was ever spotted. So it's always been a part of my reality, and that kind of led to paranormal things, and then eventually because me and my dad, we would go out and explore in the TNT area all the time. It's become more of a tourist attraction now. There's like a giant Mothman statue in the middle of the town, but it didn't used to be that way, right? People were afraid to talk about it because there was a lot of things happening. There's the Men in Black, the which some people say that the Men in Black is the CIA, and then other people say that the Men in Black are like this off-world species, like this, this alien group that it may be working for the CIA. I don't really have any idea, but they were in town during the Mothman sightings in the 60s, and they basically went and talked to everybody about, shut up, like stop talking about the Mothman. And they kind of, did. But then the really big thing that happened, sorry, I'm taking up a little bit of time, but it's really interesting. Like in 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed, right? It was the second largest bridge collapse in the history of the United States, where 46 people died. And it was like right before Christmas. I believe it was like December 15th. And my theory on it is because we know that the Men in Black was in there before the bridge collapse, and I think that they purposefully collapsed that bridge so that they could distract everybody from the Mothman, because the Mothman was a really, really huge deal. And in West Virginia, there's like people are really get up in arms about stuff like that. There was like literally people that were going out there with pitchforks and guns and everything to find this thing, because it was taken really, really seriously. Like people were believing it hardcore, and they were going out there to try and search for it and kill it. And they had to, I think some kind of governmental agency or something kind of got involved, and they were like, okay, well, how do we take care of this problem? So let's collapse the bridge, and that'll serve as a huge distraction. And it's very interesting because right after the bridge collapse, no one talked about it. No one talked about it for like 30 years. It didn't start becoming a thing again until the early 2000s. But yeah, that's just kind of my journey start to cryptozoology.
JSOL jumps in. I just want to intersect on this, something really intriguing. Not happened to me, it happened to my mother, of all people. I watch the skies daily, take pictures, whatever, daily, you know what I mean? So I'm looking about at everything. And one day, actually, two men in black, literally black suits, got out of the car and talked to her, saying, did you see that? What was in the sky? And I said, did you not take a picture of the car? She said, the car was blacked out, everything. You know what I mean? We don't get many cars completely blacked out and black men in suits over here. And that happened a few years ago. It was so funny. Not long after we saw the frozen plane type of thing, which my mum saw with me. So it was just so funny about that. I just wanted to intersect, like, even my mum can have a little encounter with these things. What's your thoughts, Jay? Before that, I just want to ask, what is the link with the name Indrid Cole? with the Mothman. It seems to coexist with it. Like
I think injured Cole isn't he the smiling man?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe he was a smiling man, and there was someone that was because during the Mothman sightings there was like another sighting. Apparently there was, I think it was in West Virginia. It might have been in Ohio or Pennsylvania. I don't know. I would have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure it was on a highway, Route 35 in West Virginia, where this UFO or something landed in the middle of the highway, and this man got out of this ship, and he was like a smiling man, and he interacted with this gentleman that was in the car. It might have been in Fayetteville or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me. But yeah, during the time of the Mothman sightings, there was like another weird instance where this gentleman was stopped on the highway from this object that landed, and this dude got out. I think you could probably look it up, smiling man, I think, but yeah,
There's
that's
also,
only
sorry to cut you off there. I'm just thinking the smiling man in dreams. There's that too. So there's like a few things that I kind of want to go off on right here, just because I have this all typed out, right? So I know, so going back to the bridge collapse, right? So the bridge collapse happened on December 15th, 1967. And I was like, okay, 15, right? 15 always comes up in like a cult, Illuminati, like all these gematria decodes for some reason, like Area 51. And then you were talking about it happened West Virginia. Yeah, West Virginia has a lot of like the cave systems of the US, correct?
There are some cave systems that run through there. What I was really interested in, because there's like apparently like this huge tunnel system that runs through Point Pleasant that very few people actually know about, and it like goes on for miles and miles and miles and miles that you can literally walk through. And I was always interested in trying to find it as a kid, but nobody knew where it was, and it kind of became a legend in itself. But there has been a few people, I watched a couple of YouTube videos where people kind of found it, and they said that they just walked through it for forever. Like it could have just kept going and kept going. And it's like this huge tunnel system, and I don't really know who made it, or I think it was probably done during World War II. But yeah, it's really interesting. And
that's very fascinating, you two just mentioning tunnels, and then obviously what you mentioned at the beginning, because if you think about it, if you did, for the people listening now, if you just type in cryptozoology, it actually means the search for and study of animals whose existence or survival is disputed or unsubstantiated, you know what I mean, such as the Loch Ness Monster, etc. But if you just break it down, like I always do, just say crypt. It means an underground room or vault beneath a church used as a chapel or burial place. So you're talking about an ecosystem, tunneling system underneath the ground. And we're talking about cryptozoology and animals. And there's people talking about mud floods and Tartaria. And we talked about the griffin at the beginning. The griffin is an old symbol for Christ that is tied to Tartaria. So it's just intriguing that we're talking about cryptozoology, the different types of animals. And then you meant the first 4 or 5 letters of it is crypt, meaning underground and hidden, that what you mentioned at the beginning. Is it a case of what people talk about, like all them old films as a kid of animals and everything living underground? Do you know what I mean? Like a Hollow Earth type of thing. What's your guys think on that, Jay? And then we'll go to Ryder.
I think they just found it was basically a big hole in China, and they went down there, and there's like an ecosystem down there that had like fresh water and whatnot. I think there was also a correlation going back to the U.S. West Virginia, that there's a lot of the I think it was the U.S. tunnel system. What was it? So most of the national parks in the U.S. are, if you overlay the map of the national parks in the U.S. and like underground tunnel systems and missing people that go missing in these national parks, they kind of overlap on one another. so then, I always found that kind of interesting, right? When I found that out a long time ago, and then your mind just races and you go down all these weird rabbit holes. But going back to it, a lot of these military bases are connected to it. So I wonder, and then, I just had to type it into the Gematria calculator. I used the 4 ciphers, and, you're getting some occult numbers on Birdman and Mothman. I see 33 here, 47. I see 7. I see 11. Right. So these numbers keep showing up, and I wonder if it's if there is some sort of like deeper meaning to it. I also found when I was originally talking to Paul about the topic, I just typed in Cryptozoology Canada, and then I came across a Bigfoot coin that was minted on 25 cents in the year 2011. So it's just like these things keep happening. And then if you type in Bigfoot into the Gematria calculator, so Bigfoot, see, original ordinal, so the first cipher, so A equals 1, B is 2, C is 3, Bigfoot is 74. So you got the 11 there again, right? And then the full reduction, you get the 38, the 11.
I'm not falling for it. We're not mentioning 11. It's cryptozoology.
Right? And that's why I just laughed. And it was just, when I sent that to you, and now we're just going deeper into literally cave systems and, these tunnels and these places that they're finding, that they're saying, we found this place in China and it has a whole ecosystem in it. And it's like, they say we've gone, I think, 7 miles into the core, or into the center of wherever we are, the plane.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Earth, so it's kind of interesting there's lots of opportunity within that 7 miles for lots of things to happen, at least, right? And that's what they tell us. So there's lots of interesting stuff going on as far as tunnel wise. I wonder what the connection is to these different sightings and the military. And I can't help but think 1967, let's try to find some stuff before World War II, because after World War II, things start to get murky with all the MK Ultra and stuff like that, right? So I wonder if this was, some kinds of tests going on, or, it could be a plethora of things, or it could be, some animals that we aren't aware of or that have gone extinct. There's a crazy list of animals that have gone extinct, right? So.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of weird things happening in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. It was one of the first cities and states to start using the lobotomy, like the open brain surgery, not the lobotomy that became where they stick the ice pick through the tear duct of the eye, but like literal transorbital lobotomy where they open up the brain and like mess around with your screw around with your brain. And then there was all kinds of, who knows what they were doing during World War II. I mean, it was all, secretive stuff. They could have been doing all kinds of different experiments. And that's one of the theories, is that the Mothman was one of these escaped chimera creatures that they were experimenting on, and then it kind of just got away from them, and then they had to kind of step in and go back and take care of it later on, when people figured out that it was an actual creature and they were actually seeing it. But it's interesting about the tunnel systems and stuff too, because the tunnel systems in the United States also line up to the constellation of Orion. I was trying to look up the Orion gematria really quick to see if it kind of correlates to any of the things that Jay just the Bigfoot gematria and Birdman and stuff like that. But yeah, it's really interesting, and how Paul was talking about, crypt, they're underground.
Did you just mention Leo then, the lion?
Did I mention Leo?
The constellation?
No, Orion.
Orion. I got lion in the brain. I just caught the last bit of it. Yeah. So what we're thinking, have you guys ever seen that film, The Descent?
Yes. Really good movie.
That's just what got me thinking about the cave system, and as you mentioned about making animals. could we be talking about all these cryptozoology be ancient Plum Island type of places making species? I might be wrong here, and I am wrong quite a lot, but doesn't, like, even in scripture Bible talk about the first animal was the Leviathan being made? Now, if that's the case, were there other animals crossbred or made in a lab? Because we don't know, you know what I mean? People talk about Anunnaki, people talk, there's so many beliefs who, listening today, and we have to, like, cover all bases. So could these animals actually be made in the lab and released? Who knows? Because it's just a thought that we have to admit to.
Well, what do other countries say about this? You know what I mean? Like, are other countries other than the United States saying that these creatures don't exist and that they're just mythological things, or maybe some other places in the world like actually teaching people about these creatures like Bigfoot? It would be interesting to figure that out. Like, would you learn about Bigfoot in a school, right? Would someone sit you down and be like, hey, like, Bigfoots exist. If you see one in the woods, run away, or stay away from it. I think that's a really interesting, perception about it too. Are other countries, do they take them as, being real, or are they taught as an actual real being? And then we're just kind of out here in left field and we're saying that they're not real and that they don't exist.
It's short-mindedness, isn't it? Sorry, Jay. It's just short-mindedness to say nothing ever exists. We could say, for being average, 98%, 99% are probably fake. There's always that 1%. And that's just what always gets me, that always that 1%. Sorry, Jay, you go.
No, I was just going to say it. I think it really just, I think it depends on the culture, right? Some cultures are really rooted in their history and legends and stuff like that. Well, some don't even know it and don't even care to learn anything about it. So it's like ignorance is bliss type thing. Yeah, some people, they go hiking in the woods thinking that absolutely nothing can happen to them, right? While other people are, they have bear spray and they have, 12 gauge shotgun in case Bigfoot comes after them. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I think it really depends on how people are brought up to, what kind of culture. I was just thinking of, just to kind of switch a tiny bit here, of the series Midnight Mass.
Yeah,
really good show.
Yeah, you guys have seen it. So like they found the devil. Have you seen it, Paul?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so they found, or the priest found the devil or whatever in, a basement or a cave system type thing, right? And
Jerusalem.
Yeah, it gave him his powers, and that's kind of how it went, right? So that's kind of interesting to think.
What's really interesting about that is that they called it an angel.
Right.
The priest called the demon, or whatever it was, like an angel, because it had wings, right? And then I was like, okay, well, maybe this is something what an angel would actually look like. We all have this misidentification of what an angel is. Like, we think that it's this huge, beautiful being with blonde hair, blue eyes, and all this. Well, what if it's not? What if it's really ugly looking?
That just always gets me, and I'm not to jump off topics, but everyone says how everything is reverse mirrored. Why do demons have to be evil and angels be the good guys? If everything was reversed, it's like we're picking which things are being reversed in our life. It's like, for instance, we'll have a lot of people listening today who will believe in so many different things, are supernatural, you name it, but then you mention Bigfoot, oh no, it doesn't exist. It's like, you know what I mean? It's okay to say it doesn't exist, because sometimes we do need to see it, but there's so much weird stuff that's happening in this realm, especially at the minute. We can't all be crazy. We can't all be lying. Yes, there's people faking it. There's always going to be. But there's, like I said, there's just always that little percentage of what if it's out there. We're learning so much. We only see in so many spectrums. These animals could be in a different spectrum. There's dimensions. We just might not be able to see. So there's so much to do. The cave system across the US to traverse in. People talk about mud flood. It's just a lot of information that's going around, yet, we seem to categorize and put ourselves in a category. And then if one of us, goes into another place, oh, do you believe in this guy's hand? You get ridiculed. It should not be. There's so much, there's a lot of crap and so many intriguing topics out there. And this is just one of them because it covers so much. People talk about, oh, it's hidden in plain sight, and they always lie, they always show you truth in TV. Do you guys remember? You might be a bit young for this, but I'm old. There used to be a TV series called Dark Angel.
No, I haven't seen it.
Do you not remember? It was about, it had Jessica Alba in it, and it was basically about, what we're talking about, super soldiers genetically modified, messed with in a lab to create the perfect super soldier. And they got them as kids and so on. That's what it was about. But in it, there was, like the evil organization behind it were called Manticore. Now, Manticore is one of the most famous beastry or bestiary, however you pronounce it, the cryptozoology type of animals. It was a lion's body and it had a face of a man. Now, isn't it funny that the series named, the bad guys after the Manticore, and they even had a hybrid mixed with lion DNA in the series, and his name was Joshua. It just always gets me. And now I put that in my video on it. It's just weird how we're talking about all these different types of animals. And when people say, oh, well, they're extinct now. When something is extinct, it's officially not extinct. And that's what always gets me. People think it's extinct. It's not. They have a figure. For instance, I'll just use it for, for the show. 100. So if an animal hits 100, it's classed as extinct. That's why you always see an animal saying, oh, it's come back from extinction. Because it's never been out. It's hit that level. So even animals that it's classed as being extinct are not actually extinct. Obviously, the last one has been killed. Then we're talking about, are these places bringing all these exotic animals back? You know what I mean? There's hybrids and messing with our DNA to find the perfect soul. You can go so many ways. So I'll open that up to you guys, what I've just said.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up like a hybrid type of entity, because if you look at the Great Sphinx of Egypt and Giza, that kind of looks like a hybrid entity. It's got the face of a man or a woman or whatever you want to call it. So, and then
they reckon it was a lion originally.
A lion, yeah, Lion of Leo is what it was supposed to be.
Well, it could be anything.
Yeah.
They have the different gods in Egypt too. That's what I was going to bring up. You have Anubis, right, with the dog head and the man body. It's kind of all over the place.
Is Anubis a dog or is it a cat?
I want to say dog. I want to say dog off the top of my head, but I could be wrong.
It's just weird, and sometimes it traverses into like a jackal type, and so many people say different things.
Yeah. I'm just thinking pointy ears, but
yeah, it's just like I said. You've even got like the gods of Egypt. You've got Stargate, when all these different gods used animal heads. You know what I mean? So there's another type of hybrid or beastry, or what we're talking about today, cryptozoology. These animals actually existing. Were they seen as gods? Did they even exist? You know what I mean? We're still arguing over what shape this realm is. So, politics and different things. So, if there's an entity out there, an animal that's living, is it an animal? Is it just another species? With us, because we've been told about, we've lived in caves. Every culture, like Ryder was talking about in this realm, has stories of Wendigos type, skinwalkers, hairy men. You know what I mean? So there's so many. They can't all be lying. Surely people can't always have been on drugs or stoned or drunk, or what I mean. Some of these things were actually had to be about. It's just whether it's still here now. I just don't. It's open for debate, isn't it?
Yeah, Anubis is a dog. I don't know why I thought it was a cat, but it's a jackal. It's a jackal wild dog.
Yeah, because the Egyptians are all worshipping cats too, so you connect them both, right?
Yeah.
I think I was thinking of Dragon Ball Z. What's it, Beerus? Beerus, he looks more like a cat than a dog. But
the list of cryptids is actually insane. Now that I'm kind of going through it, it is like extensive. Really, like there's aquatic, there's land, it could even be like, dinosaurs or quote unquote, it could just be these like large reptiles in the water and stuff like that. It's just such a fascinating topic. You can go so deep into it. I'm just kind of looking through the list right now, but I did like the, I think we were talking earlier, me and Paul, we were just talking about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Yeti, all these different names for basically the same thing, this large bipedal, humanoid, ape-looking type creature that's not really in contact with us per se, right? So it's kind of just different phenotypes throughout the world. So I wonder if it's like Paul was mentioning, they're not really extinct, but their population is so low that you barely notice them, right? And their habitat is at a specific region, let's say in a specific cave that we haven't got to because it's in the middle of China, in the middle of nowhere or something, right?
It's interesting too how the Bigfoot cases have kind of evolved, right? Everything has kind of evolved in this reality. UFOs have evolved into these plasma morphing crazy craft. The Bigfoot phenomena has evolved from being a physical being to some thinking that they're interdimensional and that they can just phase in and out of reality. It's interesting how like it's changed over time.
Yeah.
Like I
that
don't
down
really
to knowledge and learning and people like us in all different fields theorizing to why no skeleton, because obviously some people say the skeletons have been found, then people say it's fake, you know what I mean? And people, there's so many things. It's like, could they be the reason people go missing in state parks? You know what I mean? So on and so on, because because there is a lot of people going missing in all these national parks. It's like it's a case of, are they being took or taken? You know what I mean? I'm not just blaming like a Bigfoot for that. It could be skinwalker type. I mean, it just boggles the mind, isn't it? When you talk about all these different types of animals, were they like I said? Is it a natural thing? Is it just a species, an ancient species that's been released from a cave? We saw so many films on it. You know what I mean? It's like, well, which film is telling the truth and which film is just total fiction? It's like Arthur C. Clarke said about science fiction being, basically real. You know what I mean? So I just love having an open mind and then going from there. Do you know what I mean? Because I used to say there's no such thing as a frozen plane. You know what I mean? The glitch in the matrix. Yeah. That's, people are faking it. I saw it with my mum and three of my kids in a car. I saw it frozen, not moving above a housing estate. Do you know what I mean? The planes don't hover. People were saying, "Oh, it's hovering over the." No, planes don't hover like that, so close to houses, and it was frozen, and we were in like total shock. And it's like that's what you're talking about. Your relative, it hits you, and it changes you from that moment because you saw something that was you even meant to see it. Is it all down to learning more? Like I've said in various videos, more you learn, the more light, the more knowledge you get, and you bubble. It shows you what this place is really looking like.
I think that really locks in the simulation theory that we're in some kind of simulation, but I don't want to get off topic here. It's interesting that you brought up the skinwalker, right? Because that kind of disproves that maybe that the skinwalker, because the skinwalker tradition is an old Navajo tradition and Native American quote unquote myth. So if we are attributing a lot of these sightings and these entities as some kind of governmental experiment, the skinwalker isn't, because there wasn't any governmental experiments going on, 1,000 years ago, whenever, these Native Americans were talking about it.
That's the point, right? Because we're talking about the mound builders, the Mississippians and all them type of people. Is there, because we don't know what time period we're in, and like I said, we can only use what we know, can't we? So you're right in what you're saying. It's just my openness is saying, well, take away the calendar and what is real and what not, we just don't know. You know what I mean? You have the skinwalkers that we're talking about. There's Wendigo that's supposedly come from a human. It's crossed over and starts to, you know what I mean? There's so many things. I mean, like you, Jay, this is why I wanted to talk about cryptozoology, because Jay went out not long ago, a few days ago, like deep in, you know, in the middle of nowhere, and he's found loads of these buildings, settlements, and it's just crazy. And he heard rustling, you know, and that gets you thinking straight away of Bigfoot type of thing. And, you know, I'm never here to dismiss anything until I see it myself, you know what I mean? And that's why I remain open, and it's just an intriguing topic.
Yeah, like
Jay. Yeah, go ahead, Jay. I was going to ask you what's your experience.
Quickly about this, the Thunderbird, right? So there could be like you know, military operations that kind of even capture these creatures and maybe do some kind of DNA splicing with humans. But then there's also things like the Thunderbird, right? And a lot of these native stories, all of these like ancient cultures. I know there's a lot of stuff coming out of India and South America. I haven't dug into it too much at the moment. I'm kind of really focusing on North America, Canada, and kind of my geological area. But yeah, it's kind of, you know, there's so much information out there, and it's hard to see like what's true, what's not, and kind of decipher a lot of it, right? It's almost like information overload where there's too much, right? So it's nice to just get out there and kind of, you know, experience things on your own. But then, you know, like Paul was mentioning, I was out in the sticks the other day, and I was looking like up the hill, and I couldn't really see that far. You know what I mean? If something's out there and it knows kind of the terrain and stuff like that, I'm sure it is way ahead of anyone else that's kind of out there hiking, especially hiking and stuff. Maybe if they were like military and kind of hunting for it, maybe. But then again, if they're using cave systems and stuff like that, and going back to the Thunderbird, you know, maybe that thing is still around in a cave system and it hibernates for, you know, 1,000 years, and then it comes out for, you know, 10 years to procreate or whatever, and then it goes back to sleep or something like that. And that's its cycle. And there's only like a few of them, right? I'm surprised.
Like that film that, what's it called?
Rain of Fire.
Jeepers Creepers.
Jeepers Creepers and Rain of Fire. So yeah. Jeepers Creepers is set in the US, right? And it's kind of based very similarly kind of around the Mothman, right? The guy flying around and attacking people. But there's also another really good movie out of the UK, Rain of Fire, where the dragons, right? And that's kind of another cryptid that is kind of the opposite of the griffin, right? Is the dragon, the serpent.
It's the same, you know, genealogy, as they say.
Right. There's these two kind of opposing, like, forces in a sense, the good and evil, I want to say, or something like that. It keeps showing up everywhere we look as a community. I've been noticing this. And yeah, it's just a very interesting topic. We can get very deep into, you know, specifics, but, you know, looking at the whole thing, there's so much to unpack here, right? There, like, even just Skinwalker Ranch is like, I know some people that have done a lot of work on that, right? So it's a very interesting topic. And personally, I'm going out there and kind of exploring now. And like I said, there's some places where it's like, kind of feel like you're being watched, but you just keep hiking because you don't want to be paranoid. But that's very interesting. It's very interesting the way things are evolving, right? I think Ryder was saying that. Paul or Ryder, I can't remember. Sorry.
Yeah, it's also interesting if you look at the Dyatlov Pass incident. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Dyatlov Pass, where I believe it was 8 hikers. I don't know. You'd have to look it up.
Oh, yes.
They went up on top of the mountain, and they were discovered with their tents cut from the inside out. They were all dead. Their eyeballs were removed. Some of their tongues were removed. Like, it's really, really interesting how some of those cases from around the country also connect to, you know, the missing 411 cases. They're very similar, like, you know, the people going missing in the woods in the national parks, and then they're discovered. Some of them are never discovered, and then others are, some other things are discovered, but the actual physical body is never discovered. So it's really interesting how a lot of these stories connect. But the Dyatlov Pass story was one of the first ones that I really heard that really spiked my interest. And some people think it was a military operation, had something to do with radiation and experimentation and stuff. But it was really interesting how they were all discovered within a very small radius of, you know, where their camp was set up, you know, and that they were all, you know, some kind of mutilation was done to them, and there was high amounts of radiation that was found on them. I don't know.
What gets me really intrigued is because, like I said, we're coming along really like fast, aren't we? If you talk about our development spiritually, research wise. 5 years ago, you wouldn't get half as many people coming up with some of the things and topics and openly talking about it. And this is what I love. I just love talking about different topics. I mean, we've got, for instance, this topic, what we're talking about today, some of the animals it's concerned about, like even the basilisk, you know, it's serpent, but it's sometimes got a chicken head and eagle head, and it's sink and kill. I mean, that its other name is Regulus, which is, you know, the Leo constellation as well. You know, so you got all these things, and is it these ancient people? Are they just basically on something? Is it actually myth, folklore? Was it actually happening? I mean, you've only got to look at the in Germany. You know, you got Hansel and Gretel and all that type of thing. They're a lot darker when you're in, like, you know, the really dark. And obviously they've been made into the Grimm, you know, the Grimm stories and that. But it's just, there has to be. I mean, if you even go for statistics, we can't say everything does not exist, because, oh my God, some of the topics that we talk about, and even people who've been listening to this at home, surely there is animals and species out there living below ground. If we've had mud flood and there's layers, and that's why there's a cave system. Is there a hierarchy? You know, are they working with the government? Do they get left alone if they stay below ground and only come out in national parks? Is it why the government, you know, has all these parks, basically trying to keep some of the entrances safe? Who knows?
On that note, Paul, can I interject quickly?
Yeah.
On the national parks, I am passionate about this, man, because I've been trying to go to these parks and like find parking to park my vehicle or to take up my drone and get some good footage. And I've been a drone pilot for 5 years. Like, I'm not like an expert or anything, but I'm not going to do something stupid. I know people ruin it, but you can't fly drones in a lot of these national parks. You can only stay on a certain path that they've made for you. To get to where I went the other day, I had to walk, I think it was 5 kilometers down a street because there was no parking anywhere along the street. They made it very difficult to park around this area. And then to get into the place, it was like, I think I spent like 2 hours just to get to the place that I wanted to go. And then I spent another 2 hours videoing around. But they're making it very difficult to get to these different areas, these national parks. There's also a lot of signs that say you're under video surveillance in like a forested area. You know what I mean? And it's like, you can't do this and that. And there's this whole list of things that you can't do. And you know, like, I understand people ruin it and that sort of thing. It's kind of excessive. You know what I mean? If it almost does feel like they are trying very hard to make this difficult for people to
keep you
explore. Yeah, and it's only changed like that in the past like couple of years, 2 or 3 years, really. I was really focused on my career before COVID hit, and it just kind of sent me sideways. So now I've been kind of switching it up. But now looking back, a lot of these places, they didn't have a lot of these regulations before COVID and all these rules and whatnot. So it's kind of interesting to see the way things are going and the kind of control that the province, the federal government, whatever it is trying to have on the everyday person that's just looking to explore and find more answers for themselves and you know, each other, right?
Yeah, I want to ask Ryder this, and obviously we'll come back to JSR. So I'm not just picking on Ryder Lee here. If we're in a realm, you can call it a matrix, you can call it simulation, whatever you want to call it. Or, like I said, if we know the power of manifestation, is it a case of all these entities, beings, animals, whatnot, are being manifested through people's belief in them? Because we've seen films and topics talk about this. For instance, ancient Greeks, when all the gods' power was lost, it's because people weren't praying to them. Now, is it a case of these entities are coming more into limelight because people are manifesting them and actually believing in them? What do you think on that?
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. If you look up the term egregore, it's an occult term, and an egregore can be created through our thoughts and beliefs and our energy that we put behind something. And I tend to believe that we are in a realm in some kind of simulation, and our thoughts and beliefs create our reality. So, and I look at everything in this realm, in this simulation, as an egregore, right? So whatever you put your attention, your beliefs, your thoughts into, it creates, and you can create an entity that doesn't necessarily have to be real. And then it turns into a real manifestation. I mean, there was this group of scientists and researchers that, I forget the name of the experiment, and I would have to look it up, but where they literally created a paranormal entity, and they gave it a name, they gave it a backstory, they gave it all of these details, and then that entity started communicating with them. Right? That's how powerful our beliefs and our thoughts and our ideas are. It literally has enough power to literally create reality. And whenever that's what I believe that Jesus is, that's what I believe Satan is, what I believe Lucifer is, all these different entities has been a creation of us. And us believing in them has given them power to actually manifest in our reality. We've given them a title, we've given them a label, and that's enough to actually, because I agree, and I'm in full alignment with your synopsis that angels and demons are frequencies. So and everything is a frequency. So if you can manipulate the frequency, then you can create whatever it is that you want to create.
Yep, and you add that to the internet, where you've got, I know we're talking now and we're theorizing and different things, but think about the power of the internet, where we've got so many like-minded people talking to each other on a daily basis, manifesting all this energy, going through the scrying mirror, the Ouija board, which is the computer, with your cursor in hand. It's just crazy to think about it. What do you think, Jay?
Well, going back to praying, I think of praying like preying upon, right? Like a prey, you're, hunting something, right? So it's really a really interesting topic, because I see a lot of people, channeling entities, and I wonder where exactly that's coming from. I wonder if it's coming from other entities or a specific thing, or I don't know. It's very deep for me to kind of get into. But Paul has talked about this a lot in regards to frequencies, the human frequency. We're kind of like the blueprints, right? So going back to praying, I wonder if you're kind of attaching something onto you that maybe you shouldn't be. Or, going back to the whole everything in occult is reversed, right? So a lot of things are reversed in this realm. I do a lot of decodes using reverse gematria, and it gets, crazy results. I think I did one earlier, and one of the reverse was, I think it was, the Mothman in reverse full reduction, which is 33. So that kind of stuck out to me.
You sent me then.
And reverse ordinal is 105, which is basically 15, and like 1551 always comes up in these occult decodes. So I'm always kind of looking at the reverse message of things. So that's my opinion on it. I know a lot of people also, sorry, just let me interject really quick. I know a lot of people talk about don't do Kundalini yoga until you're kind of fully ready as well, right? Because it could be too much. So I wonder if there's a correlation there where you're bringing in some kind of entity and some sort of manifestation within yourself. And I wonder if that is created externally throughout time or something like that. The more the collective focuses on
your like consciousness, and you're manifesting using all this extra energy, and you're thinking about Bigfoot, or you're talking about or an animal or whatever you think about, and then it's manifesting into this reality because of the power of us.
Right.
So these are topics that you've got to think about. Are these animals manifestation? Are these animals through, being in the lab? Are they actually made by a creator? Is it a crazy cabin in the woods type scenario of all these monsters held up, ready to be released at certain points? It's just madness. I mean, one of the most famous these cryptozoology animals or medieval bestiaries is the Blemier. And that is the one, if you guys know, it's got no head, but it's fair. It's basically its face is on its chest. I mean, they were supposedly last seen in Nubia, which is obviously not far from Egypt. You know what I mean? So it's just intriguing that what some of these locations that these so-called entities were about. And them Blemiers just intrigue me so much, like the face and on the stomach. And it's like, can that be really real? You know what I mean? I know we think so many things are out there. What's your thoughts on that, Ryder?
Well, I think that if things are run based off of our belief, then it would make sense that some of these entities would have to pop up every once in a while to make us remember that they do exist, so that they can kind of carry on living. But then when you look at, the Baphomet, the Baphomet looks very similar to some kind of cryptozoology.
Yeah, in modern area, that is.
Yeah, it looks very, very peculiar in the way that it, that is kind of like a hybrid of creatures.
That's what was it you or Jay was talking about from the 60s onwards? It started coming, and that's when, isn't that roughly that the Baphomet was brought in by Elias of Levi in the 60s for the Church of Satan type of thing. And it's just weird that these things are started from a certain period in our time where we're more talking about these animals. But I want to, obviously we're getting near the hour now, and what the brilliance of the show is, guys, for you listening at home, we're just going to roughly do it an hour. And yes, it's not long enough, but we just wanted to bang quickly in. So for the last 5 minutes, I just want to ask Ryder and then Jay, if your belief in the cryptozoology, these animals, are they real? Are they fake? Are they unknown? What's your actual thoughts on it for the last couple of minutes, and then we'll go to Jay after you.
I think there's a lot of things that we can't really perceive, and there's not really a lot of physical proof. I mean, there has been proof of people that supposedly have gotten Bigfoot hairs and stuff like that, and tried to send it in and get it tested. But then that brings in the question, are they actual, physical entities? Because like what we were talking about earlier, we don't really have any idea. The phenomenon has morphed and changed from the first, I'm blanking on the name of the footage of the first Bigfoot film. Some of you guys.
I know
the Patterson Gimli film. And back then it was looked at as like a physical entity, and now it's evolved into this, interdimensional type of phenomenon. So, what's the reason for that? Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
Is it our perception of it that's changed, and we weren't able to comprehend that these entities might be more of an interdimensional kind of species, and then we looked at them as physical? Like, I don't think we really know exactly what's going on now as far as them, being real. again, I really don't know. I don't know because I don't know if they're an actual physical entity or they're dematerializing, they're rematerializing, are they interdimensional? But I think that there is a lot of credence to them. There's been too many people that's had experiences for something not to be for it not to be real on some kind of level.
What's your thoughts, Jay? Real, not real, genetically modified? What's your
I think
thoughts?
it's kind of a mix of all of those. Going back to kind of things being real, I think new species are found every day, be it bugs or fish in the ocean. I know the ocean is what is it? Only like 10% mapped or something like that.
Yeah, it's
ocean
ridiculous.
floor. Yeah, it's they always say, why are we exploring space when we haven't really explored the ocean? So I think that's a possibility, that there's different kinds of species, be it not on our wavelength that we can see with our eyes, or just hidden because there's so much different land. I'm looking at different cryptids here that are in Antarctica, right? So it's like, is Antarctica real? That's the whole thing. And then maybe it could be these are some species that got in here somehow from the outer Earth. How there's all these, apparently, how it's supposed to be an infinite plane, and there's all these different islands and whatnot, and at certain times there's openings, there's the gates, there's the Janus Islands on the South America and South Antarctica and Greenland. Yeah, there's so much, right? So and then there's also in World War II, you had a certain funny mustache man sending off his buddies to go hunt for all kinds of occult things and the Holy Grail and all these other things. So, and doing all kinds of research testing, and where those guys went, right, in the U.S. and where we're at now. So this is a very, very deep topic, and you can do a lot of research on just one of these cryptids. So it's a very interesting topic to me. I think there's so many variables. I think there is some real, some psyops, some hidden, unknown. We're still trying to learn how our bodies work in certain ways. So I think there's a lot more research to be done, and I think people need to ask more questions and look for things, and maybe not so much have an expectation to find something, but just ask questions and research things for yourself, dig into it. I know a lot of the big thing right now is these Starlink, right? You see a bunch of things moving in the sky and you're like, oh, UFOs, right? And people are saying, oh no, it's Starlink. But then, what happens when there is some crazy stuff happening in the sky, and everyone's going to say it's Starlink every time, right? Yep. So, there is a slippery slope that we could go down. I just want everyone to have an open mind, right? And to just have discussion and that's the main thing I hope to get across with myself and with this roundtable. It was a real pleasure chatting with you guys, and I'm sure I'm going to do some research now into some stuff, and I'm sure we'll shoot some messages back and forth, and I look forward to the next one for sure.
Definitely. I mean, it's just a case what you just mentioned then, for instance, before we go, because we've just hit that hour. There's like old bestiary animals called sea monk, sea bishop, that are actually identical to Iomes or Dagon, the fish god, Janus,
right,
because they're the same people, and it's obviously coming out of the sea. So it's intriguing, this topic, and we could have done a 10-hour video, 20-hour, and you just wouldn't get to it. But this is the beauty of what we just started today. It's an hour, and you're just cramming in loads, and it's just mind explode of different topics that we're going to bring to the table, and just see what we can come up with just in an hour, because I think it's a nearly perfect time, and it's length, and I've really enjoyed having you two guys on, and obviously permitting you guys want to come back, we will keep coming back and doing different topics. We'll get people to suggest stuff in the comments when this officially gets published, and it's just a privilege to have you guys on, and hopefully you've enjoyed today's Cryptozoology on the Flockage Hour. I'm going to let these guys have the last word because it's only right. So, Jason, you say something to finish, and then we'll go to Ryder Lee, and then we'll call it today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Paul. Ryder, it was an honor being here with you. Super fun, guys. I guess you can find me at JAY Explores Soul, SOL. That's my YouTube channel. I'm going to put up some videos of just my exploration, drone footage, different podcast conversations I have with people. You can also find some information there on my YouTube channel, how to get in touch with me if you have any questions or want to do some collaborations or anything like that. I'm open to chatting with people about all kinds of things. That's pretty much it. It was super fun. Look forward to doing this again.
And Ryder Lee, we'll let you have the last word.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much, Jay. It was wonderful meeting you. I really enjoyed the time here, and I'm looking forward to the next conversation because me and Paul have a really awesome topic that we've already discussed that's going to be mind-blowing. And you can catch me on YouTube, Rockfin, anywhere podcasts are served at Raised by Giants. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you all.
I'll put all the links in the description, guys. Hopefully we'll have a working one for Jay in there. Follow him, follow Ryder Lee. It's just been a privilege to have this today, and I'll see you soon, guys. Take care. Bye, guys.